Most people think One Piece is a lighthearted pirate adventure, but some scenes were so disturbing, they had to be censored, brutal injuries, rewritten character moments, and even one backstory that was considered too dark for television. Let's start with that one. There's a major difference in how Zeff and Sanji's backstory appears in the anime versus the manga. In the anime, when they're stranded at sea, Zeff dives into the ocean to save Sanji. During the rescue, his leg gets caught in chains. To escape, he's forced to cut it off. But the manga tells a much darker story. Instead of an accident, Zeff cuts off his own leg on purpose, not to escape, but to survive. Because while they're stranded, Zeff actually eats his own leg, which is honestly insane. But an even crazier bit of censorship shows up in the 4Kids adaptation of One Piece. Whenever guns appeared in the original anime, the 4Kids version tried to remove them. Instead of guns, characters were sometimes given water guns. It's one of the wildest censorship choices in the series. And honestly, once you notice it, it's kind of funny. For example, there's a scene where Helmeppo points a gun at Kobe. In the original anime, he's clearly holding a real gun. But in the 4Kids version, they replaced it with a weird toy hammer, which already looks ridiculous, and it gets even stranger. In another scene, a group of Marine soldiers are aiming their guns. In the original version, they're all carrying rifles, but in the 4Kids adaptation, those rifles are replaced with water guns. The funny part? They're still firing real bullets, which somehow makes the whole scene even more bizarre. To be fair though, this kind of censorship made some sense at the time, because the show's main audience was younger kids. This next censorship change makes absolutely no sense. Everyone knows Luffy's iconic move, the Gum Gum Pistol, but in the 4Kids version, they changed the name. Instead of Gum Gum Pistol, it becomes Gum Gum Blast, which is just weird. And it wasn't only that attack. In the 4Kids adaptation, they changed the names of almost all of Luffy's moves, and the censorship choices only get stranger from here. While rewatching both the 4Kids version and the original One Piece anime, I noticed something pretty wild. Any scene that showed blood in the original series was completely removed in the 4Kids version. Take episode 27, for example. Luffy goes head-to-head with Don Krieg. At one point, Krieg fires poison darts at Luffy. In the original anime, Luffy is clearly shown bleeding, but in the 4Kids adaptation, things get strange. Not only did they erase the blood, they also changed the poison darts into, wait for it, suction cups. Yes, suction cups. It's one of the strangest censorship choices in the entire dub. I wish I was joking. But not all censorship changes in One Piece were about violence. Some of them changed small cultural details. There's a scene where a girl named Rika brings Zoro some rice balls. He's tied up and clearly starving. In the original version, she's offering him onigiri, a traditional Japanese snack. It's a small moment, but it carries real meaning. But in the 4Kids adaptation, the rice balls are replaced with cookies. Even the dialogue is redubbed to match, which removes the cultural context and turns a heartfelt moment into something oddly generic, which honestly just doesn't make sense. But that wasn't the only thing they censored in that scene with Zoro. If you place the 4Kids version next to the original, you might notice something strange about Zoro's cross. It looks a little different. That's because in the 4Kids version, the top of the cross is removed. It's a subtle change, but once you notice it, it's hard to unsee. The reason is actually simple. The cross looked a little too similar to a Christian crucifix, so to avoid possible religious controversy, they removed it. And it didn't stop there. They did the same thing to Mihawk's iconic necklace. In the original version, it's clearly a crucifix, but in the 4Kids adaptation, it becomes a plain gold pendant. Even Mihawk's sword design was slightly altered to remove any resemblance to a cross. And while we're still talking about Zoro, there's another strange change. Did you know his name is actually written differently in the English manga? In the official Viz release, his name appears as Roronoa Zolo, not Roronoa Zoro. The reason is surprisingly simple. Zoro sounded a little too close to Zoro, the famous masked swordsman. So early English releases changed the name to avoid possible copyright problems. Because of that, Viz kept using the spelling Zolo. Later on, when Funimation handled the anime, they switched the name back to Zoro, but Viz never changed it. Why? Because fixing it would mean reprinting all the earlier volumes. So even today, fans still debate whether it should be Zoro or Zolo. It's a tiny change, but somehow it created a whole fandom divide. But the name isn't the only difference between manga Zoro and anime Zoro. There's a scene where Zoro tries to save Rika from Helmeppo's dog. In the anime, he throws a chair at the dog and knocks it unconscious. But in the manga, Zoro is much more brutal. He kills the dog instantly. It's a surprisingly dark moment, and it's a big shift in tone between the manga and the anime version. Moving on. There's another strange bit of censorship in the anime. Sanji decides to cook for a group of pirates. In the manga, the other chefs strongly disagree. Some even point guns right at his face. But in the anime, those guns are replaced with giant kitchen utensils, oversized forks, spoons, even cleavers. It's ridiculous, but the reason is simple. The anime aired during Sunday morning time slots, so Toei Animation toned down the violence. And that's not the only censorship Sanji received. In the 4Kids dub, his cigarette suddenly becomes a pink lollipop, because apparently nothing says dangerous pirate chef like a sugar rush. And the strangest part? The way he holds it. So we've already talked about how 4Kids censored Sanji's cigarettes, but they didn't stop there. They even censored an entire character name. In the 4Kids dub, Smoker was renamed to Chaser. Why? Most likely because the name Smoker would remind kids of cigarettes. But the edits didn't stop there. His cigars were removed entirely, so instead of smoking, it looks like he's just mysteriously exhaling smoke, almost like he ate a really spicy pepper. But smoking wasn't the only thing censored. Alcohol was removed too. In the 4Kids dub, many drink references are changed to juice. Sometimes the color of the drink is altered, and in some scenes, characters actually say they're drinking juice, which is honestly a little insane. The strange censorship didn't stop there either. They even went after tattoos. Take Mr. One's famous chest tattoo. In the 4Kids adaptation, it was completely removed. And that wasn't the only one. They also changed Ace's iconic arm tattoo. At first glance, it just looks like his name, the letters A, C, and E. But in the 4Kids version, the crossed out S was removed, and that crossed out S actually hides a secret. It's a tribute to Ace's sworn brother, Sabo, which means that hidden meaning was erased too. And what makes it even sadder, Ace died never knowing Sabo was actually alive. However, Ace's arm tattoo wasn't the only one that got censored. His back tattoo also looks completely different in the manga and the anime, and there's a good reason why. In the original manga, Ace's back tattoo featured a symbol called the manji. It's a cross-shaped symbol with bent arms. In Eastern religions, the manji represents divinity, good fortune, and the sun. But to many Western viewers, the manji looks very similar to the swastika, a symbol that became associated with Nazi Germany during World War II. So to avoid confusion and possible backlash, the anime later replaced that symbol with the familiar Whitebeard pirate emblem. Speaking of Whitebeard, during his fight with Aka Inu, half of his mustache was destroyed. At first, that might not seem like a big deal, but if you compare it to the manga, things get much more brutal. His injuries are far more severe. And get this, half of his face was blown off, and he still kept fighting. What a legend. But not every change in the 4Kids dub was visual. Some of them even affected how characters sounded. Sanji is a good example. If you've ever watched it, you might notice his voice sounds a little strange. That's because the voice actor, David Mu, was directed to perform him with that unusual tone. The problem? Fans absolutely hated it. Instead of making Sanji memorable, the voice just made people dislike the 4Kids version even more. But things take an interesting turn right after this. Quick shout out to Kaylee for supporting the channel. If you want to be next, comment I subbed. Now watch this. If you've only seen the One Piece anime and never read the manga, you probably missed this little censorship. Law already comes across as egotistical and arrogant in the anime. But in the manga, he takes it even further. At one point, he straight up flips Kid off. And that's not the only time he gives someone the middle finger. Every one of those moments was completely removed from the anime. But one censorship might be the dumbest of them all. It involves Quina. Her death is one of the most tragic moments in Zoro's story, and it shapes his entire journey as a swordsman. But in the 4Kids version, Quina's fate was completely changed. Instead of dying, the dub implies she was attacked by a group of men and forced to retire, which means, unlike in the original, she's still alive. It's a bizarre change that completely ruins the point of Zoro's character development. And that's not the only censorship involving Zoro and Quina. There's another scene between them that was completely removed. At one point, Kuina grabs her chest right in front of Zoro. She's trying to prove a point, that one day he might surpass her simply because he's a man and she's a woman. But in the 4Kids version, that entire moment was cut out. Now, when it comes to Luffy fans, no one compares to Bartolomeo. He's completely obsessed with Luffy. In the anime, one of his crew members starts talking trash about Luffy. Bartolomeo reacts immediately. He grabs the guy's tongue and threatens to cut it off. But in the manga, he actually does it. He cuts the man's tongue clean off. Brutal. Speaking of brutal, here's one of the most savage censorships in the entire series. In the manga, Bellamy is playing cards with Roshio. Roshio wins, and Bellamy completely snaps. First, he stabs Roshio through the hand. Then he shoots him multiple times, but it doesn't stop there. Bellamy smashes a bottle of alcohol over his head. And to make things even worse, some of his crew set Roshio on fire and throw him out the window. The anime tones this down heavily. Most of the violence is censored, and the entire scene is softened by a huge margin. Another strange censorship comes from the South Korean version of One Piece. In the early episodes, Zoro's swords were completely altered. Instead of normal blades, they were recolored solid black. So on screen, they looked less like swords and more like blunt clubs. The goal was simple: to make the show appear less violent and more family-friendly. You probably know Luffy's iconic face scar. In the anime, that moment is revealed much later. But in the manga, we see the truth almost immediately. It appears within the first 5 chapters, and the reason for that scar is shocking. Young Luffy stabs himself in the face just to prove his courage. The anime removed this scene from the early episodes to avoid showing a kid stabbing himself. But the anime hides even more details most fans completely miss. Click this video to see the wildest One Piece Easter eggs.